हम्म। There's a coffee and sick. Five. Oh, morning.
Good morning.
Morning. He's joining. Yeah, he's joining on some. How's it? Yeah, because he was sick. When did you- Yeah, I saw the calendar invitation. I already mentioned Zoom, so I didn't know. Morning.
Oh, good morning. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, good.
Your voice is different.
Yeah, I got nasty flu. It's so bad.
I thought it was a different person actually.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty bad.
Hope you feel better soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And again, sorry that I can't be there in person. You certainly do not want to get this virus from me.
Oh, that's perfectly understandable.
等一下，Francois.
Hopefully get better soon.
Thank you, thank you. Ignacio, do you know if VP will be joining in person?
Yeah, he's already here.
Oh, he's over there. Oh, hi, I see you, VP. Hi. Who else are there? It's very difficult to see it.
It's just remove the camera. No, but we cannot see. Yeah, no.
Oh,
So
Ryan's there. Okay.
Ryan, Kid, Mimi, and from the yeah, sitting like in the three way. Okay. Okay. Thank you
All
for
right.
that.
MVP, I think I will have to ask you to moderate. Um, we will have to, invite other audience to leave the room and stuff, right? So I will have to rely on you to manage that.
No worry.
Yeah, sorry that again I can't be there in person because ooh, this cold or flu is really bad.
You're getting better soon.
Yeah, thank you. And Ignacio, I guess we were waiting for Evangelist to join us, right?
Yeah, we're still waiting for him.
Okay.
He sent an email this morning asking about the time, and yeah.
Okay, he's here. He's here now.
Yeah.
Hi, Evangelist.
Yeah, hello everybody. How are you doing?
Hey, Evangelist, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Okay, so I guess we are ready to begin. So,
Yeah, go ahead.
all right. So, all right, this is the dissertation proposal for Ignacio. Just for your background, Ignacio has spent 2 years in another lab, and then he joined my group, and then did the research for about 3 to 4 years, right, Ignacio?
Yeah, it's been 3 years. 3 years.
2 years, yeah. So, but even, even with the transition, he's done a fantastic work in our group, has been very productive. But I would like you to also know that there was a big transition for his PhD studies. Um, and yeah, so with that, I'd like Ignacio to take over the presentation from here. So, floor is yours, Ignacio.
Thank you very much. I was saying where to start actually. I need to pass the slides with the keyboard, so I'll just start here. And thank you very much for the presentation. And let me start with the proposal dissertation proposal. So my dissertation proposal is about overcoming data and energy challenges in wearable IMU-based learning. And my committee is formed by Ivan Lee, which is my director, Julius on Zoom, VP who's here, and Jean-Francois is also on Zoom. So this is what I'm going to be talking about today. First, I will give you a brief introduction about the topic, why we are interested in this. Then we're going to be talking about these two main problems that is my thesis about. First, addressing data scarcity. For this, I'm going to talk about 3 projects. 2 of them are already developed, and one of them is like the proposal for the rest of the thesis. And the second topic I'm going to be talking about is the energy consumption or energy efficiency challenge. So for this, I have just one project, but I have divided it into 2 parts. One of the things that I've already done and things that are still remaining to do. Okay, so let's start with the introduction. So you may wonder why we're interested in IMUs. 1 second. Just So you may wonder why are we interested in IMUs. For those who are not familiar, IMUs are sensors that measure essentially acceleration, linear acceleration, and angular velocity. And there are other types of IMU sensors, like those that can also measure magnetic field or orientation with respect to the magnetic field. But here in this work, we are going to focus on just these 2 applications, acceleration and gyroscope or angular velocity. And sometimes in some of the works, just in acceleration. Acceleration is like the cheapest to fabricate in these sensors. Gyroscopes are a little bit more complicated. They are usually more energy consuming than acceleration. So why we're interested in IMUs? Because IMUs have been widely used for a long time. Originally for clinical applications. We can see in this picture this study from 2022, where they are assessing patients from Parkinson's disease, and they put different sensors around the body. They put different sensors around the body. It's like the purpose of putting different sensors in different parts of the body is because they need to have a more detail in how each segment of the body is moving. They wanted to detect freezing of gait, Parkinson's disease people. So they needed this. They needed to capture different kinematics around the body. This was like the original application for IMUs. Of course, there are others, like for example navigation, but here we're interested in like human-centered measurement. And they started with clinical applications, but of course IMUs, since they were very cheap to fabricate and they were almost extremely small, almost neglectable in terms of size. Like they have been introduced to wearable sensors. Now, wearable sensors is like a different story here because wearable sensors have been widely spread in consumers in modern society, and the reason is they incorporated IMUs because it's again they're very inexpensive, they're very comfortable to wear, and they can extract information from your activities to, for example, predict what type of activity you're doing. For example, by measuring the swinging of the arms, they can, for example, count steps and estimate calorie consumption. There are many applications of this, and they usually require some techniques to extract information to get something useful from them. So there have been different techniques developed through the history of IMU of wearables, and recently there has been interest in incorporating learning techniques in the IMU signals. However, there are two main challenges for this. So in yellow here, I'm plotting the performance with respect to the data type for shallow learning algorithms. This is what was used in the beginning, and that was fine. They were able to get decent performance, but as data increased, like they reached a plateau, right? These algorithms don't work for very fine grained predictions of, for example, activity recognition. Deep learning techniques are like the new wave of machine intelligence, and they have good with respect to the shallow learning algorithms or heuristics is that their performance can drastically increase as we increase the data set. So, for example, this has happened in other fields like computer vision or natural language processing. Those fields that have a lot of data where they can learn from, they can increase the performance quite a lot with respect to shallow learning techniques. Now, the problem with IMUs here is that data size is not available as in other fields. There's a limit here. I want to give this just a schematic representation, but there's a limit on which on how much data we can get from people, right? It is not like in computer vision where we can get as many data as we can, for example, or natural language processing. In IMUs, it's hard to collect them because you need to recruit people, or people have to agree to share the data. The main problem, especially when you have the data, is to annotate it. So annotate takes a lot of time because usually this is done by an expert, and you cannot do it as in computer vision where you spread, for example, a bunch of images to a lot of people, and they will look at the pictures and just label them. For IMUs, it's different because if you see an IMU signal, it's not easy to interpret as it is for images or videos or text. So we have the problem of interpretability, and that puts a barrier on problems that we can get with deep learning. Essentially, we are talking about this region where IMU applications are needed. We want high performance with very low data. And deep learning is not suitable for that. On the other hand, we have a similar problem with energy efficiency. Here, instead of data size, I'm plotting energy consumption. And deep learning has, of course, more energy consumption as we increase the performance. And this is because when you want to achieve high performance in deep learning models, you need to increase quite a lot the number of parameters that the network has. that the model has, and more parameters implies more computation. More computation implies more energy expenditure. In consequence, energy consumption, if we want a high performance of the stuff that we want to resolve, we need a lot of energy for the algorithm to work on device. The problem is wearable sensors have a battery, and the battery has a capacity, and therefore we have a limit on how much energy we can consume to run these deep learning algorithms on wearable devices. The consequence, again, this is the region where we want to be. In consequence, deep learning algorithms are also not very suitable for IMU applications. So in this work, I'm going to be addressing these two parts where I try to be in these two corners. And let me start with the first problem, which is the data scarcity problem. So for this, I'm going to talk about this project that we developed 2 years ago. This was generating IMU data from videos. And you may wonder, why do we want to get the IMU data from videos? So the thing is, videos are much more abundant than IMU repositories, and they're of course much easier to interpret. So if we want to label them, this will be much easier than doing it on the IMU in the IMU. But there are other application cases. Like for example, there may be some cases where wearable sensors are burdensome. For example, in health or children applications, for example, you cannot make them wear wearable sensors to track their kinematics. They usually find it uncomfortable. So with for example, a motion capture system, which is like a system of different cameras that measure with infrared the position of the body, you could solve that problem, but the problem is that they are also very expensive. They're hard to set up in the lab. With this solution, we will be able to just a camera, like a video camera, you can just record the subject performing an activity and measure get the IMU data as if the subject was wearing IMU. Or you can just benefit from the amount of videos that are available. You get more IMU data. So this idea has been implemented before. In fact, the standard pipeline is you get a video, you extract a human pose with a human pose extractor. This is pre-trained deep learning model, and simulate a virtual sensor based on the skeleton position through time. And this was the idea for IME2, which was the existing state of the art, but at the moment, 2023. The problem is, here's a plot of virtual and actual measured accelerometer for X, Y, and Z axis. And you can see that there's a lot of error, and there's not always correspondence between virtual IMU and measured IMU. And the problem is that they rely on an oversimplified sensor placement on the skeleton. So for example, they say here they put it on the wrist, they just put it on the wrist joint. Without a specific placement of this, without a specific placement of the sensor in terms of position and orientation. And they also didn't consider like distributions on how people can wear the sensors. So for example, some may wear them more closer to the elbow, some more closer to the wrist, or different angles. There are also different angles on which a sensor, different orientations on which a sensor can be put. You can put it flipped in the right and the left. So in consequence, like they just like the algorithm is deterministic, and they only obtain one sample from one video. It's not very effective at all. So in this project is apart from the standard pipeline, which is we have the video, we extract it for example, with MediaPipe, we extract the skeleton with MediaPipe. We put sensors into alignment to obtain the position and orientation of the sensor, and with kinematics equations, we obtain acceleration and depth. So apart from the standard pipeline, we added distribution on which we can place the sensor. This is considering what I said before, like different types of sensors that we can put it on, and this becomes like random variables. Different stuff. Position with respect to the wrist joint, orientation with respect to the wrist joint. And if we have these two random variables, then we can have a distribution for this. We model this placement of the sensor with a distribution taken from statistics from population distribution. And we can get multiple IMU readings, like virtual IMU readings, for a single video. In fact, actually, these are two random variables, and the optimal placement and orientation of the sensor are not known. And if we wanted to see what are the optimal parameters for placing the sensor, we have real IMU data. We could back propagate this error and find what are the optimal parameters for the sensor placement. This idea is called the personalized model. I'm going to show some results. So we measure the IMU for 7 subjects, and this is a sample of them. This is measured by the IMU acceleration and gyroscope. And in the bottom, this is the inferred IMU taken from a video. We also recorded the subjects with a frontal camera, and this is what we got. There are two time series here, because one is the population model that I mentioned, sample from a random distribution. The personal model, which is with the optimal parameters for placing the sensor. We can see that, especially for this model, the shapes of the curves are well aligned. However, we can see some wiggle here, which is some error that we are introducing into the system. So there are different sources of error here. One of them is coming from the skeleton extractor, the pulse extractor from the videos. And other sources of error are, for example, coming from the errors of our system. For example, that the system doesn't consider movements of the sensor within the wrist. So to measure how much error is actually coming from the skeleton, we also recorded the subjects with motion capture system, which is very precise in terms of capturing the position of the skeleton with time. And we, again, instead of extracting the skeleton from the video, we did it with the skeleton extracted from the mocap. And we can apply the same idea to get a population model and a personal model. And we can see that it's much closer related to the actual acceleration measured on the wrist, on also time, especially for the first one. We can quantify this with normalized mean square error, that's in percentage, and with mocap and video, we can obtain these errors. And with the video, we can see that we can get around 5% off from the mocap, which is like the gold standard for in terms of measuring the skeleton position. And this will be like that 5% is coming from the skeleton extraction model. So for the second project, we built on this idea of the virtual IMU, but instead of getting IMU from videos, we said we need a lot of data, and videos are still hard to annotate, even though they are easier to annotate than IMU. They are still hard to annotate. So what we try to do with the second project is we try to generate synthetic data. So the purpose, I guess, to not rely on videos is that when we want to, for example, classify the type of movement that is very specific and it's very hard to detect. For example, in linear movements, their movements are movements of the upper limb where the wrist moves from a point A to a point B with a relatively straight trajectory. We want to detect those linear movements. Even in videos, we struggle to do it. Actually, Shruti in the room is trying to work on that from the videos domain, and this models, the deep learning models, even pre-trained, they struggle to understand like what is a linear movement. So what we try to solve here is let's generate them, but based on previous knowledge that we had, and we'll explain that in a second. So the problem with generating new movements, linear movements in this case, is that if we start with existing data and we apply deep learning models to generate more, these learning techniques, unless we have a lot of data, they will overfit with to the existing data, and the data that we'll produce will be useless. We could have some diversification, but the problem is that either they are overfitting to existing data, or they will produce unfeasible solutions. And the way we approach this is, okay, we keep this idea of data-driven deep generative AI, but we also incorporate biomechanical principles. So there has been a lot of research studies on how the upper limb moves, and they have been developed a theory on how it moves in linear movements, especially. They have like a very well-defined kinematic profile, and we can incorporate that knowledge to this learning, also basing on a computer graphic environment. So what we do here is, apart from the data-driven learning, we incorporate the biomechanical principles knowledge, and we also incorporate a computer graphic environment to simulate these movements and to obtain feasible or physically feasible movements, and therefore high new performance. For the computer graphic algorithm method, we use Blender and VisualIMU. VisualIMU is actually the project that I have already explained. And the idea goes like this. There are actually two phases on which we produce synthetic movements, synthetic IMU data. In the first phase, we learn the movements. We learn the biomechanical characteristics of the movements, and we generate new synthetic movements. And these synthetic movements are then put into a virtual environment with an avatar performing those movements, and then we place a virtual sensor, as we did in the previous project. We have again the skeleton and the distribution, population distribution, and we can obtain IMU data, synthetic IMU data, just from this synthetic movement. Now, in the first phase is where we add the biomechanical principle knowledge. So we start with a collected motion capture set of movements, and we process them through a feature extraction, where we learn biomechanical meaningful or biomechanical inspired features, which are listed here. Then we learn the distribution of them, and we resample new features that we can convert back into movements. Now, if we wanted to learn directly from this data, you can see, for example, there's a lot of noise in the input data that we are risking. We will be risking if we just learn directly from the older data. So what we are doing here is projecting into how is the upper limb supposed to move, and then learning those feature representations. And for the virtual environment, we use Blender to simulate this avatar, and then the virtual IMU, which I explained before. Again, we apply this pipeline to generate linear movements, or they are also called quantified movements. This on the top, I'm plotting the distribution of the distance and duration of movements for the ones recorded with motion capture system. This is the original, the starting data set, and this is what we obtained by synthesizing new movements. So after phase one, we can see that the distribution of these two variables, which are kind of like the most important for this type of movements, duration and distance, are quite similar. Now, if we use this synthetic data to synthesize IMU, we can use that synthetic IMU to train downstream models. So here, for example, for this experiment, we use the synthetic data to pre-train downstream models to detect point-to-point movements or linear movements in actual accelerometer data. So here in blue corresponds to using just synthetic data, and in orange using just real rate. And we can see that as we vary the number of subjects that we use to train this model, the performance for training real drops drastically. This orange curve resembles the curve that I showed in the introduction of deep learning models going down when we have low data. And we can see that if we use synthetic data, we kind of remain in the upper left corner, which is the region where we wanted to be at. And the performance that we can get with synthetic is pretty much equivalent to using around 10 subjects of 10 subjects of data for training the model to detect linear movement. You may wonder what's the useness of this. So the fact is that the fact is that annotating 10 subjects of data is very heavily time consuming. For this study, it took like 30 minutes to annotate just 1 minute of data, and you can imagine that if we scale that for 10 subjects of half an hour of recording for each, that becomes a lot. And by using synthetic data, we can just generate that almost instantly, and we can achieve high performance with it. Now we can also extrapolate this idea of detecting linear movements, but in stroke survivors. We also apply to this problem. Now, stroke survivors have like a different way of performing linear movements because they have specificity, especially on the affected side. And like when they want to perform a movement, they kind of struggle to do it. And if we train a model to detect point-to-point movements and linear movements using just data from stroke, we can see again that the model drops in performance as we decrease the number of stroke survivors that we use to train. However, in blue, we are using a model pre-trained on healthy data, which is taken from this box here. We fine-tune it on stroke survivors, and we can still get higher performance. And we can actually get higher performance, a little bit higher performance than in orange. That if the model was pre-trained on 10 healthy which is this box. So we can get comparable performance with 10 healthy. So let me jump into what is still missing with this idea. So far, what I explained with these two projects, or at least with the last project, is that we can generate IMU data for single mode. However, it's useful for example, detecting those type of movements, like for example, linear movements. But if we wanted, for example, to detect more complex activities like walking, dancing, or lifting, this type of movements are composed. This type of activities are composed of multiple movements, right? So our generative AI wouldn't be able to generate these more complex activities. However, these activities can be decomposed into movements with a learnable, what we call a learnable graph. This is similar to the idea of natural language processing, where words have different meanings and they're interconnected to each other. So there's, after I say good, it's likely that I will say bye. And with movements, it's the same. Like, for example, if I'm walking and I swing my arm towards the front, it's very likely that in the next second I will swing it back towards the back, right? So there's like movements have also this type of parameter, so that they're not completely random. So the opportunity that we have here is to again use biomechanical principles to learn or to decompose these complex activities into primitive movements, what we call them. Yeah, into this sequence of primitive movements, and we can represent them with meaningful parameters in terms of biomechanics. As we did in the previous project, each one of these movements also have like a predefined kinematic profile that we can project to and ease the learning for this sequence. You can actually learn this with conditioned on particular activities. Like for example, for conditional walking, it's more likely that after I swing my arm towards the front, it will swing back in the next second. And again, we can reuse this virtual environment that we developed for the previous project. So what is the purpose of this idea? Is to generate IME data for complex activities that we can use to pre-train downstream models, so they can serve as kind of foundational models or foundation models. Foundation models are those that are pre-trained on a lot of data, and they can be fine-tuned for a specific task. Could be, for example, detecting linear movements. Going back to the original idea, but we can those usually fine-tune on a small amount of data. So the idea goes like this. So the first phase, we have like the sequence learning process, where we start with the large human activity organization data set. There is actually a big data set available called AMAS. Sorry. And it is annotated. There are also fine-grained labels for this data set. We can decompose the movements present in that data set to learn what are the sequences. Right. So we have developed a method that allows us to decompose complex activity into sub-movements based on biomechanical principles. We can represent them as a sequence of features. This will be like resembling the NLP problem. Then we have all of them. There's the sequence, the sequence of these tokens, and then we have the generation of. We can generate new sequences of movements to generate, again, with the virtual environment, generate new synthetic IME data. Now this large data that we can obtain can serve as a data to pre-train downstream model that can be fine-tuned for a very specific small data approach. Now let me jump into the other topic, which is addressing energy consumption or energy efficiency. For this, we have been working with VP's lab for this project, developing an ultra-low power human activity recognition system with IMU data, or for IMUs. So why are we interested in this? Because, again, processing IMU is it's hardly it's very energy consuming for deep learning models. Originally, heuristic algorithms were used to process this data on device. They're still actually used. For example, big companies like Google still use heuristic algorithms to extract information from IMU because they are simple enough and they achieve a decent performance. However, if we want to satisfy user demands to be able to distinguish between two tasks more efficiently, more effectively, we should apply something like deep learning. The problem is that, as I said before, deep learning drains the battery very quickly if they are applied on the device. So what we, there's actually a company, Synsense, who has developed Zygo IMU, which is a neuromorphic chip that processes IMU signals with spiky neural networks. And spiky neural networks, they are like deep learning models that compared to classic deep learning models, they process information only when there's information to process. So if the signal that we want to process is sparse, then these spiky neural networks are actually very efficient in terms of energy. There's a lot of time where they are not activating or processing, so they don't need to actually spend a lot of energy processing data. Now, this system is based on an encoding of the signal. So, like we have acceleration, we need to convert them to spikes because that's the type of data that the spiky neural networks process. The way they encode the signals into spikes is through a bank of bandpass filters. So they divide the frequency into bands, and each one of those bands is encoded using amplitude-based spike encoding. Now the problem with this is that when there's activity, and the sensor is moving, these signals get converted into non-sparse signals, non-sparse spiking signals. And the whole idea of using spiking neural networks is that we want to save energy by encoding into a sparse signal. However, they are not achieving. But still, this is like the state of the art in terms of energy consumption today. So what we developed in this project is we want to encode the acceleration signal into much sparser spiking representation. But we want to also exploit this sparsity to optimize the function of the spiking neural network to decrease the energy consumption. So the idea of this pipeline is we have this sparse spiking encoding module that we can then process with a spiking neural network. Now, if we have, for example, this acceleration signal, this is just a representation. But as I mentioned before, complex activities can be represented with movements, and those movements have a predefined kinematic profile. And this is one of them. This waveform is one of a typical waveform for how a movement will look in acceleration. Like in fact, like acceleration signals will be composed of these movements overlapping to each other a little bit. And if we have, for example, the idea of this pipeline is we have this acceleration which has two movements here, but we want to spike, and we want to generate two spikes, one for each movement. And the way we parameterize this each type of these movements is the amplitude of this movement of the acceleration will define the amplitude of our spike, and the width, which is another parameter that is useful that is useful to represent the movements. The width is represented into which channel are we going to spike. So we compare this single channel acceleration signal, it's actually 3 channels, into 5 channels signal, where each channel represents the width that we want to represent for the moment. So in consequence, we obtain a very sparse representation of the signal. This is the idea of movement extraction. We are actually extracting these movements from the acceleration signal. And what we do with the next module, the slowing module, is we kind of manipulate the signal to lower the time resolution on which we represent it. Now, lowering the time resolution with this factor F helps to run the spiking neural network in a slower rate, and that helps proportionally to decrease the energy consumption. So our hypotheses are that first is that this representation of the signal has pretty much no loss of information with respect to the original signal. And the second hypothesis is that when this is sparse, like the sparser it gets, the less energy we will be consuming for the spiking energy. Now, for the first hypothesis, we reuse data from the previous project to reconstruct, to process the acceleration signal, which is actually deep after, and encode it into a spiking signal. Like here's the encoded signal. This is the signal ET, and we can use this spiking signal to reconstruct the original acceleration to see how much information we are losing. Okay. Now the idea is that whenever we see a spike here, we should reprint one of those waveform patterns into the acceleration, and we can sum all those waves and obtain like the reconstructed acceleration signal, which is here plotted in dash line. Okay, so we can see that there's very low loss of information of the original signal, solid line, and with that the reconstructed signal. In fact, we can measure actually that how much is that error in terms of signal to noise ratio, and we obtain 7.7 decibels. And if we compare that with the silo method, which they use a standard filter, amplitude encoding, they obtain 2.8 decibels. We are better by 3 decibels. So that's around like half of the error that they can. We can also test the sparsity of the signal that is gonna be processed through the spiking neural network, and we can obtain 4.1 around 4.1 spikes per second, where the silo method obtains 4 times that. Okay, so we are decreasing the sparsity quite a bit. Now we also tested the second hypothesis, like the energy efficiency hypothesis, and we trained the spiking neural network to perform on the real world dataset. This is a human activity recognition dataset, and we're applying here the silo method. There is a spiking neural network trained with the silo spiking signal, and our method with different slowing factors from the slowing motion. Okay, 1, 2, 4, and we can see that as we increase the slowing factor, we are decreasing the number of spikes plotted here horizontally, and number of spikes is tightly related to energy consumption of the spiking energy. This is implying that we are decreasing energy, but we are maintaining performance. Again, this is this chart here is kind of resembling the plot that I mentioned in the introduction. Energy consumption associated with spiking count and performance. We are pushing the we are pushing the energy consumption to the left while maintaining performance. In fact, if we measure performance in terms of area, the receiving operation curve, or in terms of accuracy, we can see that our method with different compression factors outperforms what we can obtain with side. Interesting column to look at here is the model execution rate. This is how frequent the model is going to be processing, and of course, the more we process, more energy we are consuming, and we can see that as we increase the slowing factor, we can drastically decrease the energy rate and solve the energy consumption. So there's still a couple of things missing for this project, and one is testing different human activity recognition data sets. We have some preliminary results that not exactly with this system, with the system that I talked about, but with some variations, and they have shown that even with different data sets, our model still outperforms in terms of energy consumption while maintaining accuracy or performance. Second thing we're still missing is the power measurements, the actual power measurements on hardware, because these are like software simulations. We have some with collaboration with VP's lab, some measurements that indicate that our power consumption is much lower than with side. Compared to side. And thirdly, there is a way on which we have trained our network that is not actually energy efficient. So the problem is that we have trained our networks using cross entropy loss, which essentially forces the output channels to spike all the time, the ground truth output channel to spike all the time, and that is not actually energy efficient. There are other methods like the time to first spike loss that will help to decrease the actual number of spikes going on in the network and further decrease the energy consumption. That will be all. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions?
All right. Thank you, Ignacio, for the presentation. Let me open up the floor for everybody to ask questions if there's any.
So presentation, I think I understand you have all the slides except the slide 13.
13. Yes.
So on the left side, right, when you say that the two are similar, is there a way for us to quantifiably understand similarity?
Yeah. Actually, didn't include it here, but well, this is showing duration and distance.
Right.
What we can do is compare the distributions, duration and distance, and also the joint distribution. The way of comparing the marginal ones will be, for example, what I did here, which is adjusting predefined probability distribution that best fits this histogram and compare what are the parameters for both distributions. Actually, I have done that for a paper,
Right.
but I didn't include it in slides. But we can do for the marginal, we can, for example, adjust. We can adjust a model for best linear regression. The best linear model.
And what is the Y circle?
Those are outliers.
Outlier.
Those are outliers in
Thank you.
I also have a question, Ignacio. So for the neuromorphic computing project, I could understand that the amount of energy required to execute the trained model is substantially lower because you have substantially, better sparsity, right? Sparsity.
Yes.
How about training a model on the node? So let's imagine that we have um, the neuromorphic accelerometer sensor with the SNN, and we can gather some. Let's imagine that we can gather some data from the user and with some annotations, which may allow us to further personalize the model if we have a chance to sort of retrain the SNN model on the device. Do you think that can be done and in a more power efficient manner compared to the conventional approaches?
Yeah, it will require to use a different hardware. So right now we are constructing everything to be able to
Correct.
run it on the Silo IMU hardware.
Correct. Yeah.
Or the Silo IMU hardware doesn't allow to train a model. You're supposed to just inject a pre-trained model on software directly into the hardware.
Ah, okay. So
Okay.
Xylo does not allow to retrain.
No, no.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it will require a different hardware that has, for example, backpropagation.
Right. Is there such a hardware available?
Not that is power efficient. There are power available that are able to compute gradients for backpropagation, but the ones that I know are not energy efficient at all. Like they're
Okay.
not thought for they're thought for spiking or neuromorphic computing, general applications,
Hmm.
but not low power neuromorphic computing.
Okay. Got it. Another question is also like here in this table that you're showing, have you compare our results to just ANN running on either, I don't know, like, because I remember that reading that the Nature Communication paper that talked about all these important parameters to compute or compare. They did the computation for ANN on, I think, one of the Android like Arduino chips. Is that right?
I don't quite remember.
Yeah, but maybe like would there be a chance that you can also compare that with conventional sort of ANN?
Yeah, actually, I mean, I could train an ANN.
Mhm.
The thing, like, we'll need to predefine some parameters, for example, the number of neurons that we use. Here we're using around 256 neurons for this network, which is extremely small. And my intuition tells me that uh, an ANN with those number of neurons will perform very poor.
Yeah, okay. But I think it's better to also compare that to that so that we can see what are the, really gain in the performance compared to the what's actually being used right now. You know what I mean? Like Apple Watches and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
In Apple Watches, they don't use deep learning model on the device.
Okay.
They use heuristic algorithms. They may have some learning techniques, but they are like sharp.
Okay. Yeah.
If we
But
compare, sorry, right. So if we compare with a other device, I would suggest to go with ESP32S3. So that's the chip that the industry believes we're gonna move forward with on device
Okay.
AI. We have experience on that chip as
What is the name?
ESP32.
Yeah, through that way, I mean, you can see how much your work is enabling to support this deep neural network that has not been possible in the conventional like von Neumann architecture, right?
Right.
And VP, why ESP32? I mean, ESP is a good SoC, but yeah, why specifically ESP?
So ASP32, I think, is commonly considered as a replacement of MSP 430. So I think in the past 10 years, whenever we talk about low power processing and embedded system, we talk about MSP 430. But
Right.
ESP32 is a little bit better architecture and it's supported by ARM and it has an AI engine.
Okay.
So that would allow you to run AI model on it.
Okay. Sounds good. I think that could really sort of enhance the visibility of the opportunity that we're unveiling here, right?
Right.
Okay. Any other questions in the audience?
Well,
Oh.
I have a question. So Ignacio, are you planning on leveraging what you did in your first project, so the synthetic IMU data to pre-train some models for the SNN? Because I know you're using labeled data sets right now, right?
Yeah. I didn't think about it. Like I didn't think about merging like the two ideas, like the two challenge approaches. Because for the like addressing this data scarcity, I haven't been considering energy consumption at all. But yeah, I guess it could be worth to try merging the two ideas, like using synthetic data to, for example, pre-train a spaghetti method. Yeah, that could work. I wasn't planning on doing it, but now that you mentioned it, yeah, I could try.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
I think it was slide 12 about mechanical features.
Yeah.
Really good, like some pre-trained model that describe these features.
No. Actually, the way we extract these features is not based on learning. The learning process happens here when we learn the distribution of those. But this is just based on biomechanical law.
Is it like it's like a fixed size vector, like
Yes.
like more by
There could be more. The problem is that if you want to resample new vectors of this type, and you have more features than the ones that you need, there's like an ambiguous way of converting back into movement. But here, by using just this number of features, there's a one-to-one representation of movements and features. Like you could add more to have a better understanding. But actually, if you add more, then this learning process is harder for shallow learning techniques. And also you have the other problem of ambiguity with respect to movements and feature representation.
Yeah, I wasn't very clear about why we these set of features.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? If so, then we will have to leave the room to only Ignacio and the committee members while inviting the rest of the team or sorry, rest of the audience to leave the room. Thank you. And thank you for coming.